Hey guys, welcome to The Grey Escape. I'm Natalie Gray, and this is an unexpected episode. It even caught me off guard. I'll tell you all about it right after this. All right, so what's happening this day of March 7th, 2021? Local time in Los Angeles is 4:20 p.m. And I've been writing a lot of poetry, writing a lot of stuff. And as I've mentioned on some shows, I've been evolving, basically. My poetry has become songs, and I've been learning all about music production. And it's oh my God, I hate to sound so unprepared for a podcast, but I'm trying to push through this crushing need to have things perfect and orderly and prepared. I'm really, it feels like wading through sludge, which is probably what it feels like for you right now listening to this podcast. But something really cool happened today. So I was supposed to have a little Zoom with a young songwriter. My work's been, getting exposed a little bit, and I was at a songwriting conference recently, like a week or two ago, and I got really good feedback to my songs and my music. And a few writers actually reached out to me and said, I'd love to write with you. Will you write lyrics for my music and this and my beats and this kind of stuff? And one young songwriter said, I'd love to actually pick your brains. And so we set up today a Zoom, and we were going to even write a song, but I hadn't been feeling too well. I'd had a headache from, ironically, just like a lot of writing. And my head was very weary, but I didn't want to let her down because that's really important. And so I said, hey, I'll still Zoom you. So I wasn't prepared for this to become a podcast. But what happened is she had really good questions. And I also, as she was asking me the questions, I thought, I've been asked these questions by quite a few people lately who've been to my website. They've seen that I've had multiple careers, and those careers have gone well. Yet I didn't seem to have any training for anything. And so people were like, hey, how did you do this? So no sooner had she started this interview, picking my brains, we decided we would record it so that we could share it with you. So it's sort of thanks to her. Adeline and her great questions. And a lot of it, we do reference my poetry and my writing. So I wanted to show you this notebook. If you're watching on YouTube, and if not, I'm going to painstakingly describe this for you if you're not watching on YouTube. It's a brand called Lecterm. I may not be pronouncing that right, but it's Leucht, TURM as in mum, 1917. These are A5 hardcover books. They come in lovely colors. I am not sponsored by these people. I get no discount, nothing. They don't know who I am. But I have been talking about these books lately with writers because they have little dots on them from the time when bullet journaling was a craze, which I thought I'd get into to organize my writing, but I failed miserably to organize my writing with the bullet journaling thing, but I did fall in love with the actual journals themselves. So I now have my own kind of mohawk journaling. And this is where I write all my poems in these. I've got loads of them. See, there's bonuses if you're watching on YouTube. These are just some of them, and I've got more behind me. I've got a pink, blue, multiple rainbows of these. So I thought I'd read you a quick little poem. My whole thing, if you've ever been to my website or heard me speak on the podcast about creativity, see, I'm making funny human noises. Can you hear like the gurgle in my throat? So I'm going to leave that in because traumatized Natalie's like, take that out. It's not perfect. People will know you're not perfect. But I'm not perfect. And life is not perfect. And so I'm trying to get over the need to be so scared of everything being perfect. It's what it's like when you're a traumatized person. You have to go through all these strange things. So with creative writing and creativity in general, it's to get out of your own way. So I bypass my thinky brain. And when I write so quick that I can't think about the writing and assess it before I write it. And the second my brain catches up with the writing, I get a funny feeling and I know that I'm now participating in the creativity in a governing thinky brain kind of way, which I'm against. So I quickly I trick my brain almost to just get out the way, let the pen move, write with a pen, not a typewriter. And so these are just examples. I'm not saying these are great examples, but this is free form poetry. And they start with however you're feeling. Let's have a look. Okay, so here we go. Air in a puff, through my lips feeling rough. Things are never enough, so they throw you the stuff. They think you need to be tough in a tiny pill, but too many will kill. They can make you feel ill, make you want to feel still. Air in a puff, I could stand on a bluff, hold my toe to the edge to make my final pledge. But I'm really not there. I can dredge up a care. I've got animals to feed, lives much in need of my tasks. To be steady, consistent and ready, they must always be fed, even when I'm glued to my bed by invisible forces, as strong as white horses, as they trample about me an example of how to be invincible. In principle, it's a theory that's a simple pull of imagination, a thought vacation where your mind takes a trip to hear the sound of a drip of a crystal brook through the rocks in a nook is the quietest place where there's no human race, just a fossilized echo before industrialized tech. Oh, to go back in time, the primordial slime. If they knew it back then, would they do it again? To the chime of Big Ben, I shall put down this pen, because my throat is quite raw. Today's heat demands water and rest on my pillow, where I'm safe in the cloudy billow of my soft cotton sheets and my slowing heart beats, itchy nose from some fluff, for some sleep, inhale deep from our oxygen trough. Yeah, this is the stuff where you feel a bit rough. There's no need to be tough. Just simply breathe out air in a puff. So that's a little example of kind of how I write, where you can just think of any words that come out. And I encourage everybody to noodle with this. Get some scrap paper and don't feel you have to be good. Just write words that literally are coming out, even if it's literally like, I remember when I wrote this, I was like, and the thinky brain's going, what am I going to write? Well, I just did air in a puff. So let's start there. And then it goes on and on. Okay, this was totally unprepared, this interview. I'm literally Zoom styling it, which means, as anybody working via Zoom these days knows, you're in your pajama bottoms, right? So I'm Zoom styling it. I haven't combed my hair. And the interview itself isn't even on my podcast gear because I was just Zooming her, and then we decided to make it a podcast. So you'll hear a little change in the audio quality. Okay, so we're going to get to Adeline, and she's going to take over from here.
Natalie, thank you so much for coming today. So you have many talents and many amazing careers, and you're all successful in so many of them: shoe design and comedy and songwriting and production. How is it that you're able to achieve so much and so young?
So I write a log line and you get a book, and I personally right now am a super fan of these books. Let me show quickly the label of the book. Bum, bum, bum. That's the kind of book that I love. Oh, my chip nail polisher. I like them because they're beautiful colors. They're not terribly expensive. They're about $20, which is just the right amount of money to feel you're investing in yourself. So it's not like $50 where it's way too much and not affordable. But if I buy one of these for $20, that's a treat for me. It's like, ooh, it's a premium notebook. And it has little dots in it, so you don't feel restricted or pressured by lines. It's got dots. But if you write whatever it is you want to do, like anything, if you want to be a fashion designer, a model, anything, an actress, whatever you want to be, get any notebook that you feel inspired by and you write the log line, I want to do this, and the date. So that is a hugely powerful commitment. So I did that with shoe design, for example. And I thought, well, who knows about shoes? People who repair shoes. So I go to a cobbler's, just in the mall, and I'm like, where did you learn to repair shoes? And they're like, well, there's this place downtown in LA and they sell all the shoe stuff. And I kind of figured it out. So I go down to the warehouse that he said, and it's where shoe repair people go to shop. And so there's just like weird looking equipment and rubber and, pleathers and this sort of stuff, and hides, animal hides. And I asked the assistant there, like, who's buying this stuff? Who comes? And they're like, well, shoe repair people and shoe designers, for example, in the movie industry. So I was like, well, can you give me any names of the shoe designers? And they gave me a name, and I tracked down that person and was able to see a little bit about them. And slowly, by following up one after the other, but every time write in the notebook, so even if it's a tiny thing, phoned a cobbler or went to shoe repair at the Westfield Mall, whatever it is. I'm a huge believer there's a power in writing it down, and there's a magic in writing it down. And it's very personal, and it's a commitment to yourself, and you're really honoring yourself, because when you write something down, you're investing the energy that says, I believe I can actually do this. Because if I wasn't writing it down, then I wouldn't believe it's possible. But I'm writing it down because I think that this is actually possible, that I could do this, even though it seems implausible right now, illogical, like, hey, I want to design shoes. But slowly but surely, by following one little lead after the other, I found, I started to draw shoes as well and make my own little portfolio of shoes. And I was interested in comedy, so my shoes were a little bit funny. So I had a really big shoe that was like my boyfriend's tall shoe. And then I had a little flat shoe with a tiny wafer thin sole, and it was like my boyfriend's short shoe. And then I had a shoe with a worn out toe. So it was made of denim and the toe was ripped, and it was just called the I'm broke shoe. But I showed my portfolio around, and by this notebook theory that I have, one after the other, you learn, well, where do these shoe people go? Well, who hires shoe designers? Where do these people go? And where does the business happen of this stuff? And of course, they have trade shows. And so I took my little book off to a trade show, and sure enough, I got hired. My first job was with Birkenstock, and then it was Chinese Laundry, and then Playboy, but very, very quickly got jobs, and then got sent off to China in the shoe factories. So, worked as a shoe designer a long time. And then I knew I wanted to do the comedy. And so I thought, well, the notebook thing seemed to work well, so I'll try it for comedy. So I got the same technique again, which was they were those big school notebooks with the metal spiral where you go to CVS, and they're always super cheap around back to school time, but they're never very expensive. So I went through loads of those. And this, I wrote, wanna be a stand-up comic. And okay, how'd you learn about this? How'd you learn about comedy? So my theory here, because like everything pretty much, as I say, is self-taught, I thought, well, I'll produce a show and I'll book really good comedians, and then I'll learn by osmosis. By being around comedy and really talented people, I'll learn about comedy. And if I hire the best comedians, I'll learn quicker because they'll be amazing. So I found a restaurant, and I said, hey, can I run a weekly comedy show in your restaurant? And it was in Pasadena, and it was on a Tuesday night. And I was so innocently confident. I called it Natalie Gray's Comedy Night. when I didn't even know anything about comedy, right? And I had a banner made. Like local people who'd been in the entertainment industry must have thought, who is this girl? Like, she's not even a comedian. And I had a giant banner made, and it got put up in front of the restaurant. It was like every Tuesday, Natalie Gray's comedy night. And my first comedian, I look online and I'm Googling comedian. I go to the Improv and I'm asking about who's the best comedian. Because my logic was, if I hired the best comedian in LA, other comics are going to want to do the show. So I'll, like if you're going to pick a movie and it's like, well, I've got Tom Cruise attached and George Clooney attached and, whoever, like Gal Gadot, people are going to want to be in the movie. So at the time it was Dane Cook. And so I got in touch with Dane Cook and I'm like, hey, will you do my show that I've never ever done before? And I thought, how am I going to lure comedians of this caliber? Because he was really, and is an amazing comic, very, very amazing comic. And I had no money. And so I negotiated with the restaurant, can we give these people a meal? Can we give the comics a meal and like unlimited sodas? And the restaurant was like, yeah, okay, we'll feed the comedians and we'll give them soda. And upstairs there was a game, like a laser tag place with an arcade. And I said, can we give the comedians free video games? And that was the magic. And so when I called Dane Cook, I'm like, I can get you free video games. And if you bring another comedian who's really good, they'll get free video games too. So he bought his best buddy, who was another great comedian. And that was my very first Natalie Gray's comedy night. Well, of course, word spread so quickly about this show. My second comedian was Zach Galifianakis. And my third comedian was Sarah Silverman. So the logic paid off of if I go and try and do whatever it takes to get this guy, so food, unlimited sodas, free video game. And then my other logic, and this is where I truly believe everybody can do this, and you can do it without having money, but you have to be resourceful and think outside the box. And sometimes I think maybe it was a favor that I didn't go to university, because I didn't really ever learn how to think inside the box. But I thought, if you're going to get really talented people who already are treated really well, like Dane Cook would go to the Comedy Store and Laugh Factory, and he was like a god of comedy, and he still is. The guy's a legend. So at the time, I thought, well, how do I make him feel a legend in my restaurant that's serving nachos? How do I make him feel really important? So I scrounged up a red velvet rope that you have at red carpet events. And by the stage, which I had built a little stage at this laser tag restaurant, I put up the red velvet rope at the side of the stage. And it was only like about 8 feet long. But I declared only the comedians are allowed to stand behind the red velvet rope. So when the comics came to the restaurant, I was able to say, you can help yourself order something from the menu, one meal. You can have unlimited sodas, maybe like one free alcoholic drink or two, something like this. And here's your bucket of tokens. You can go upstairs and play video games. And here's your VIP area that only you are allowed behind. You and the comics are allowed to hang out and watch the show behind the red velvet rope. And I think the psychology there was really helpful to show people respect. I believe you're important. I don't have money, but I know you're important. And here's how I'm trying to show that I'm so grateful and think you're important. And so, so that was getting into comedy, and of course, learning through osmosis. And then, now songwriting. So it's kind of like a formula in my life, is write down, here's what I want to do, and start. And it's so much easier now for people. Like, it's so much easier because you can just look on the internet anything that you want to do, there's probably tutorials on YouTube. There's meetup groups. There's, Discord channels. There's so much, Facebook groups. Oh, I also learned ham radio. This is really obscure. This was when the pandemic hit and I needed to be studying something. So I decided to study ham radio. And I passed all of the ham radio thing. Here's my plaque, which I only happened to have handy from another interview the other day. So here's my call sign. November Whiskey 6 Sierra. So that's me. Okay. So there, I've talked your ear off now. You can ask me any questions.
That's incredible. Yes, I love that. So I love that you very carefully like plan and kind of like osmosis everything. I want to know a little bit more about like your daily routine and your weekly routines. How is it that you're able, like, how do you balance and proportion kind of like planning and kind of like osmosis and then actually executing?
You're very good at interviewing. You're very good with the questions. I already think you should have your own podcast interviewing people. So I don't think I really make a plan, to be honest with you. I'm a very big fan of classes. And the reason is they force you to have a plan. And if you sign up to classes, then you have like a routine. So I studied at MI, which is Musicians Institute, for quite a long time in Los Angeles. And I did night classes so that I could do my top job. And then I could, which is writing. And then I could study music and stuff in the evening. And I was in a performance class where you would go any night of the week and they had their own coffee house and you could play a guitar song or a original song on the piano. And that was a great discipline because when you have a class, you've paid money and it's a bit like writing in the book. Once you've made that gesture, you've made a commitment to something. So if you pay for a class, even if it's a $12 Udemy class online, you've sent a subconscious message to yourself. I believe I can do this with study. So how do I support myself doing this? And it's fine to not know anything. Sometimes it's even better to not know anything because then you've got the whole journey of discovery and it's very exciting and fun learning how you figure stuff out. But I tend not to really plan. I write a lot. And in particular, if we're talking about writing, whether it's screenplays, songs, poetry, to write, I think you just have to write. It's a bit like stand-up comedy. You've just got to do it. You can't, there's some things that you can learn about structure and you can learn techniques, but there's certain things you're only going to get better by doing. It's a bit like weightlifting. A lot of writing and creative stuff is really like bodybuilding because you can't do bodybuilding without putting in the time to lift the weights. No matter how much you read or listen to seminars on bodybuilding, your muscles aren't going to get bigger and stronger without you putting in the time and the effort. And a lot of creative stuff is just like that, if not all of it, whether it's acting, singing, it's muscles. And some stuff's not physical muscles, it's emotional muscles. And writing is an emotional muscle. And there's one book I recommend when people have asked me, where do I start with writing? And that's The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And that's a great book. And it's for all artists, not just writers, but it's of extra benefit if you're a writer, because she gets you into a discipline of writing every day for a period of time. And that's how you become a better writer, So discipline wise, I don't even think I have that much discipline, to be honest with you, unless I'm signed up in a class. And then I just basically don't want to waste my money. If I've paid for a class, then it's great because I don't want to waste my money, So, but discipline wise, for me, the genuine truth of it is when I feel emotional about anything, whether it's insecure, tired, full of anxiety, which is a lot of time. and complicated emotions that I wouldn't even be able to put a label on and say, what is this? I just feel, sometimes I feel like I'm a vapor, like I don't even have a body. I just feel like a vapor that's like a cloud. I feel so light, and like my bones, I've said it a lot in different things, my bones can feel like chalk sometimes. And it's hard, but for any creative person, if you can take those hard, painful, complicated, and confusing emotions and express them in a way that doesn't harm yourself and doesn't harm other people. So for me, I write poetry, lots and lots of poetry. And, you know, sometimes I'll watch a fixer-upper show on Netflix, and other times I'll feel not good enough to even watch a TV show, and I just want to go to bed with a poetry book and write a notebook, you know. But it's healing to do that. So almost like my discipline of writing comes from my emotional muscle that is constantly working out. And that's what really keeps me going, is being able to express these complicated human fears and emotions by poems and songs. And in the past, it was in paintings, abstract paintings, and, you know, but poetry and music and songs and learning to play an instrument is really valuable. I mean, music itself is so healing. You know, buy a cheap guitar, buy a cheap keyboard, get an instrument that you can learn to play during the pandemic. And it's so healing. There's a magic. I guess I believe in magic. There's magic that happens when you write stuff down, and there's magic that happens when you express stuff. So yeah, my discipline comes of being a human being who feels a lot of complicated emotions. That's my discipline.
I love the way that you put that, because sometimes I have struggles with like discipline and like how to control discipline and how to like implement discipline, and that pressure makes me like dislike it more. How is it that you are able to kind of like use that, like let's say during quarantine where everyone is kind of like falling apart almost, how is it that you're coping and able to pick up more things, and how have you been during this past year?
Well, the quarantine, I mean, I don't want to, it's a horror for most people, but if I try and look on the positive side, I can find the threads of quarantine that have been a blessing. And that has been, in a way, it's cut out a lot of distraction because I'm not socializing, you know. So quarantine has kept me at home. So instead of maybe going and spending money on more classes where I would be in a room with 30 people, I've bought some equipment, you know, and I'll shop really carefully. Everything probably looks more expensive than it really is, but I save coupons and get the stuff at Guitar Center when you get the 15% off kind of thing, you know, and sort of save up for musical items that I want to buy. And being at home, I've probably done more creative stuff and more songwriting and writing in general than I would have done if I was not in a quarantine, basically. You know, I kind of quite like being by myself. So I'm probably not an ideal example of the suffering of quarantine, because I'm sort of like being by myself anyway. And now I don't even have to feel bad about being by myself. I could act like I'm this great citizen and I'm being so excellent with my social distance and my quarantine. But the truth is I'm quite happy by myself. So just being honest there. I just realized how terribly pale I look, because we didn't plan on doing this. I'm going to put my my Too Faced lip gloss on. Look, right here.
Is this a sponsorship?
No, I have no makeup sponsor. What makeup person would want to sponsor me? I'm as white as a ghost. Okay, look at this. Here's my...
So that kind of brings me up to like the next topic. So what is it in your future that you kind of foresee? Any future goals, any ambitions that you kind of want to tackle next?
Gosh, I absolutely love your questions. You're like the best interviewer. I just, you're going to have to Zoom me every morning now to just ask about my plans of the day. So
I'm happy to do that.
Let me see. So plans for the future. Well, I guess I'm very much into the music, and I'm very dedicated to my job right now. So I make sure I really support all of the people I'm working with on that. But again, the quarantine helps because I'm not going anywhere at night. So if I finish work, having said that, the job is with the writing is very impactful and quite tiring, to say the least. And I don't have a lot of energy. Sometimes when the weekend comes, it takes me almost the whole weekend to recover from writing 5 days in the week, you know. But when I can, I find the threads of the creative stuff. And I guess right now I've been doing the songwriting like for 2 or 3 years, and it's going well, and I meet very talented people and get to connect with people like you, and you know, you're a beautiful songwriter and vocalist. I write a lot by myself and a lot with other people, and I suppose I'm getting to a point now where I'm just trying to be as honest as possible with my songwriting. And I have gone through a lot of trauma. I have PTSD, and it doesn't show its face too much, like in an interview. But if I was to talk about it too much, what happens? I'll get a stutter and I'll start to shake. So that's the extreme end of the PTSD. But it's, you know, it's the double-edged sword. So there's a little shake there. It's a double-edged sword because it forces me to be creative because of those complicated emotions, feeling, well, from just surviving trauma. I'd like to think my goal, I guess, if I had to put a goal, would be that I just hope that my writing might help other people. So that would be my goal, that if someone hears one of my poems about surviving trauma, and that maybe they'll just feel, oh, I'm not alone. You know, I'm not alone. It's weird talking about the goals though, because another thing that I'm a believer of is not setting expectations. Because I think when you set an expectation, your thoughts are so powerful. You can build a wall of the expectation. So if you were to say, oh, I'm going to make $1,000 this month songwriting, I believe that by saying that, you've actually just put a limit up, because you don't know what opportunities are coming towards you. You might be just that right person, and somebody could hear your song online, and somebody could say, hell, my neighbor works for Coca-Cola, and they just are looking for someone just like you, or a song just like you, and you could have this amazing thing happen. And amazing things can happen, and amazing things can happen to people who've had really big, bad things happen to them, you know. And I'm like evidence of this, you know. I've had plenty of blessings to go with on the heels of traumas, you know. But rather than putting the expectation or the goal, for me, I think the better thing is to just say, I'm going to commit fully. I'm going to commit fully. And if you commit fully, everything else will take care of itself. But if you commit with a clause and say, I'm going to write 2 hours a day because I'm going to get discovered by, you know, peer music or whatever, or if you're acting, I'm gonna get cast in a sitcom, so I'm gonna do this every day. I'm not in favor of that sort of goal setting. I'd rather it come from the pure place. And for people who are actors, like, well, why are you acting? Keep going, why am I doing this? And get down to the real why. And if it's for money, you know, there's plenty of jobs you can do for money. So if you've got your life, pick something that's really meaningful for you. Don't pick something because you can make good money from it. do something because it touches your heart, or you feel it connects you with other people, or it heals you. You know, decide what you want to do and really know why. Because I think sometimes people think what they want to do and it's not really even for the right reason. A lot of people get wrapped up, for example, in becoming famous. They want to become famous without truly even understanding what that means. Because for famous people, you're basically surrendering your life to the world. You're surrendering your public life to the world. I mean, people who are really famous, Lady Gaga, they can't even, they're prisoners of fame. They can't go and do the things that we do, you know? So you have to really be careful what you're wanting to do and careful what you wish for. And I always say, because I believe thoughts are so powerful, always, if you make a little wish for something, which we all do, we're like, oh, I really hope this happens. Or I wish this happened. Or I'd love this to happen. Throw in a clause there, at no harm to myself or others. For instance, I thought for a while, oh, I could do with a little bit of time. Then just time to do stuff. And then I got into a car accident and I was off work, but I couldn't do anything. So I'd wished, it'd be nice to have some free time, but I forgot to say at no harm to myself. So I have a car accident and then I can't do anything, you know? So, and you don't want to hurt other people. It's no good wishing for lots of money and then you get an inheritance. So you have to be careful what you wish for.
I think you're a very powerful manifester. Do you think you would get to a point where, or have you gotten to that point where you no longer need to write, but what you think kind of comes to pass within time?
That does actually happen sometimes. That's why I believe in magic, you know. But I think the writing and almost trauma, to be honest with you, I've had people who know me closely and I've read them sort of my writing since I've had different like re-traumatization as well has been going on in my life for a while now, where there's something bad happened and you forget about it eventually and something comes up and it takes you right back to that place. And I've been going through that, and I've been writing to deal with it. But they've said that the writing's in a different level now. And so I believe trauma, for people who are suffering pain and trauma, if you can just take it and do anything with it, start writing on Post-it notes even, if you can get it out of you. And even if you don't know anything about anything, you don't know instruments, you don't know poetry, writing or anything, get the cheapest dollar store notebook and a pen and just start writing. I feel horrible. I feel horrible. Like, I wish I could stop feeling horrible. However you feel, start to just write it. And I absolutely swear, eventually the feeling comes out of you and on the page. And I absolutely promise this. And I've gone through this multiple times in my life, and you can do it with paints as well. You just paint and paint and paint. I mean, all of these, I've got reams of these poetry books, and these are all just emotions. And a lot of them start of just like, oh, I'm just in the dark. I'm in the dark. I feel like I'm not, I don't even have a body. I'm nothing. I'm just a vapor. Like sometimes just these very powerful emotions are so devastating. I can't move. My head feels like a lead cannonball sometimes, just with worry and stress. And that's why I've got a weighted blanket. Those are great. The weighted blanket, they're great for stress, and you can cozy up under them with your book. And I have a lighted pen. So even in the dark, if I wake up in the middle of the night, you can write with your lighted pen. And just whatever. And that's the beauty of writing for everybody. Don't think you have to be a writer. I was never a writer. I've just become a writer from writing, you know. But the freedom of being able to just write your purest emotions, like write, however you feel. For me, I might have written something like, my bones feel like chalk. I feel my every essence is just falling from my body, making roots into the ground. And I feel those roots sinking deeper into the ground. And then this will turn into something. Eventually what happened is, the more you do those, sort of more beautiful things start to come out of it. So my ramblings about feeling awful, eventually something like that turned into a poem that I wrote called In the Vine, which I read in my podcast, which the essence of it is like the oily black tar that runs through your veins, that's like depression, runs into the ground, and it becomes these roots deep in the ground, and you feel this sinking. But then slowly with the sinking, it's like the roots of the tree is actually making you stronger. And those roots that are going into the ground, deep levels of emotion, help you stand tall and stronger. And they prevent you from blowing too far in the wind. You've built your own roots with your capacity to recognize and experience deep, complicated emotions. So some people might disagree, but I believe myself, only from my own experience, trauma can be a blessing if you do something with it. And you just I could be miserable and only focus on, oh, bad things have happened to me. Why did bad things happen? But I choose to go, those bad things happen to me, and I'm going to turn them into something that maybe can help other people. It will be a healing process for me to write about these things, and maybe it will resonate somehow with other people. You know, I can't remember what question you asked that led to this ramble.
So in my brain, I was asking, like, how do you convert trauma and use it to your advantage? And it was so beautifully put, where it's like you use it to help people. I think that was so beautifully put. So thank you for sharing. And it's such a beautiful mission too. I think just by your simple existence and your simple existence of doing what you're doing is helping people right now.
Well, thank you. That makes me feel good. And there's the little, not to make people feel bad, it's okay for there to be a little selfish thing in there, that you're healing yourself too. So as much as I say, I'd love for my words to resonate with other people, let people feel they're not alone, let people know some tools to help express this awful stuff that they might be going through, which is very healing. But it heals me when I sit and write a poem. I just need to get that out. So in that moment, I'm not thinking logically, right, I'll make a poem and let it uplift the world. Like, I'm not thinking that. I'm feeling like, oh my God, where's my pen? I just want to write how horrible I feel, because I know and have learned that I'll feel better by the end of the poem. So there's a selfish thing there, so I feel like the need to disclose, it's healing for me, which is why I would like for it to be shared with other people, that finding ways to express. I mean, even doodling is great. Even getting a doodle and scribbling with that. See, I made up a word. Scribbling with a big pen. That feels fantastic. You get a piece of paper and you put squares or circles or rectangles and you fill them in with a black pen. That's cathartic. You make all these black boxes. And I used to, when I did a lot of abstract painting, I could look at the painting and read the painting, how people read tarot cards and stuff. And you can read, that's something that's come from trauma as well. Like, if you just did a doodle now and held it up, I'd be able to tell you stuff about you. And we can all totally do this. It's just like, I guess the more deeper you go from the trauma, you start to see signs and be able to understand more of other people's subconscious, just as you understand more of your own subconscious, But people would look at my abstract paintings and they'd start to see things. And what I learned is, when you look at an abstract painting and this applied to everyone I saw do this, they'd start to describe the feeling or what they saw, and every single time it referred to themselves. So they could look and go, well, this looks very complicated and it seems like it feels to be organized. And then someone else would come and look at the same painting and go, this is bright and it feels like it's just like a ray of sunshine. And they were talking about themselves. So it's a thing that everybody can do, is just Google some abstract art and look at it, and whatever you think about it, if 99% you're talking about yourself. And it can be interesting to look at what's wrong. Look at a picture. What don't you like about that picture? And I mean, I went through a lot of counseling to do with my trauma, and that's how the abstract paintings came out. I did my first abstract painting the day I wrote my suicide note, August 16, 2001. And I had a paint left over from a job, and the paint was expensive, and I'd written my suicide note. But then I thought, well, I'm not going to waste this expensive paint, so I'll use it before I do the deed. And this was my one day that opened that vein of becoming what a lot of people would say an artist, but that's just a word. It's really just learning how you express being a human. You know, that's what an artist is. It's a label. But really, what is an artist? An artist is someone who has developed a craft of expressing what it means to be a human being, you know. And so I ended up doing 44 abstract paintings, and it healed me from this terrible thing that I was going through. But I would take them to counseling, and I'd look at the painting and go, and I'd really cry sometimes and be going, but this bit, it's still showing through. I didn't want it to show through. And of course, I was talking about me. I don't want people to see this part of the paint. I want it to look all covered up. Why didn't I cover up this part of the painting? And I'd be really distressed and emotional, going, look at this part, still looks not finished. It doesn't look nice, you know. And I was talking about how I felt, the need that we've got to be complete, the need that we have to be palatable for society emotionally. It's not socially acceptable to walk into a grocery checkout line and start bawling your eyes out. You know, it's not. But it kind of should be, because we all feel, I bet some point we're in a grocery store checkout line going, I feel horrible. Like, you know, we're living in these strange constraints that the world has evolved into. And unfortunately, emotion doesn't fit in to those. Clothing fits in, branding. Oh, that's actually reminding me, that's another thing that I'm revisiting, because you're talking about creative stuff, is I have my own clothing line called West Coast London. And I started as a spray painter, and I did like about 100 weekends at least in Covent Garden, London. And so I'd been living in LA, then London. So I called the clothing line West Coast London. And my slogan, which is now I'm putting it on leggings, is don't be afraid to roar.
To roar?
Roar, like a lion. Don't be afraid to roar. And for me, that just resonates with me. We spend our life keeping quiet of things we might really need to say for our own well-being, telling stories that we really need to tell for our own well-being and for the benefit of others, secondary to the benefit of ourselves, you know. So I really like that slogan, don't be afraid to roar. So that's all. It's already launched, and I have to add more products, but it's currently actually online at westcoastlondon.com. You can get a nice comfy pair of leggings that says, don't be afraid to roar.
I love that. While we're on that topic, do you want to plug in your other socials that you'd like everyone else to check you out on?
Oh, that's a good idea. Well, my Instagram is my songwriting alias, which is Blue Brio, which is blue.brio. And I couldn't get without the dot. I think there's like some children's pushchair or something that was called Blue Brio. I was so disappointed. I mean, how could anything be called Blue Brio? Like, literally, it took me so long to come up with this name. And the name, a Blue Brio. So that I spent a long time deliberating what my songwriting name was going to be. Really a long time, and studying words, because I'm a words person. So the word blue, as I evolved, I used to make fun of stuff like this, chakras. I'd be like, oh, crystals and chakras. I'd make fun of it. But now I'm like, well, the chakra of communication is blue. And ultimately, everything that everyone can benefit from is communicating and feeling permission to communicate. And so the color blue is the color of communication, and it supports the throat chakra. And then brio, blue is also very healing, by the way, very healing color, like the blue sky. You know, it's a very healing, it brings tranquility with it. It's a beautiful color. Brio is a musical word that means life and vivacity in the musical terms. So Blue Brio is a name that literally means communicating, healing, and bringing life. So it was the perfect name to encapsulate on all the writing that I do. Communicating, healing, bringing life, lifting up, you know. So that's where Blue Brio came. So that's blue.brio on Instagram. I have a podcast, which is The Grey Escape with Natalie Gray, and it's GRAY is The Grey Escape. So that's everywhere you can find a podcast, you can find my podcast. And there's somewhere I've done poems as well. But I've had very interesting people on, and we talk about everything from comedy, spiritual stuff, really out there stuff, like do aliens exist? And I had somebody on who did ayahuasca like over 400 times. This is like, this person should be so enlightened, they should be a vapor right now. Like, so yeah, that's my main, I guess, socials. I want to start putting my music online soon, you know, making it available for people and making an album. If I had one goal for 2021, it's to try and make and put all my groupings of songs together now and make an album, you know. What about you? What's your socials, Miss Brilliant Interviewer?
Oh, thank you. Just my name everywhere. So it's Adeline Mejia, ADELYNN Mejia, MEJIA.
Nice. Well, I think you've done a lovely job interviewing me.
Well, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate your time and your experience and sharing your story. It was so valuable. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And it's so funny that we didn't sort of plan to do this. No, we didn't plan to do a video. And
very
so
spontaneous.
I will live on regretting that I didn't make more effort with my appearance. But
oh no, I feel the same way.
Yeah, we're both excused because we didn't plan to do a video. Well, do you feel kind of that you got sort of stuff? Because I know you wanted to pick my brains.
Honestly, everything that you said resonated with me. Everything from communication to your experience with PTSD to your writing, your tips, the way that you experience a day, the way that you've experienced your story has kind of unfolded into these different branches. It's serendipitous almost, because I feel like you're me of the future.
Excellent. Well, that's lovely. Always have a nice lip balm around when you're in the future so that you can at least have a good Two-Faced. It's my favorite lip thing. In case they want to sponsor me, I have no makeup sponsors. There we go. See, putting it out there. Yeah, Two-Faced. Right. Well, it's been lovely talking to you, Adeline. And so, yeah, thanks for taking your time, and thanks for taking an interest in wanting to learn about, you know, creative expression, and good luck on your songwriting journey. And I know we're going to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Yes, we'll speak soon.
Yeah, big kiss, big hug.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Adeline, for this for taking an interest in creativity and wanting to learn, and for taking the initiative to write and say, hey, can I pick your brains? And that's what we all need to do. And don't expect everyone to say yes, but you only need one person to say yes. And take that little thread and start to weave your tapestry of what you want to learn about, what you want to do in your life. So here's just a neat little podcast for you. Feel free to share it with your friends. Share it with people who are troubled, who might benefit from knowing that trouble's universal and we all go through it, but it's not necessarily accepted or encouraged into society to share that you're going through troubles. A lot of people going through troubles right now. So log on, get some online friends, Google, whatever you have to Google, support groups, meetup groups. Google the search words of just how you're feeling, whatever your trauma is. Help is out there, and you can always find it here. Right here on The Grey Escape. I mean, I don't know if it's a help. And full disclaimer, this may be no help at all, but I feel you. All right? Take care, everybody. Deep breath. See if you can do something new this week for yourself, something for your own inner person that always wanted to do something. Maybe get a notebook, and I'll see you soon, right here on The Grey Escape. Here we go again. Oh my God, look, I even touched up the chip on my nail polish because I know I was going to record this outro. How long would I have to do this before this comes really messed up? Okay, bye everyone. Oh, this is the phone. Shit, this is real ASMR. Oh my God, I'm going to add the best ASMR of all. Check this out. You don't know how long I've wanted to do this. This is the cover of my cell phone. And watch what I'm going to do with it. Right here. Tell me that's not freaking amazing ASMR. That's the cover that goes on my cell phone, and it was already mucked up. I'm probably like dropping tiny microparticles of plastic all over my pens, and because I have PTSD, I'm probably going to imagine that they'll never ever come out in the wash, and they'll embed themselves in my skin, and I'll have little bits of cell phone cover working its way through my blood. But hey, it's worth it for this podcast. Thank you for joining me on this very special episode.